What's going on, everybody, and welcome on into episode number 4 of the 2024 season's Dog House, where we are going to get you ready. We're going to get you set for this week's upcoming game. And listen, if you're anything like me, we got to start looking forward because I don't know that I can look back too much more. We are gonna look back a little bit in this show just to talk about where both teams have come from and how we got to where we're at. But man, we got to start looking forward after what the Cleveland Browns put up against the New York Giants last week. I don't know how much I can keep looking back at that. So, got a great show planned for you tonight. I've got a Buckeyes legend, a part of that Cleveland Buckeyes, geez, oh Pete, the Ohio State Buckeyes national championship team in the early 2000s, and then a guy that went on to play a nice little career for the Oakland Raiders at the time, and a little bit more in the NFL. Jay Richardson, just waiting on him to pop in here, and once he does, I'll get him in, and he and I are going to get you set. Jay's been pretty cool that he stayed really involved with the Oakland or the Vegas Raiders now, and he's an ambassador for that team, and he's going to be able to fill us in on what's going on with the Raiders, the Gardner Minshew situation, the fact that they are scoring points about as poorly as we are, a good pass rush there in Vegas, but a defense that's given up a lot of points, including last week to Andy Dalton and the Carolina Panthers. So it's just a lot to talk about and a lot to go over. And as soon as Jay pops in here, I will get him in and we will start talking about that matchup. Until we get Jay here, just a couple little reminders. One, welcome to Two Show Tuesdays with me. And I hope you'll stick around for both shows, as here on the Doghouse, we're going to talk very heavily about the Cleveland Browns and this upcoming matchup with the Raiders. And then at 9 o'clock, we're going to do that up until 8 o'clock. And then at 9 o'clock, we're right back here with Garage Beers. And we've got a great special guest. He was the former general manager of the New York Mets. You'll know him as the guy that made the Bobby Bonilla deal, the infamous Bobby Bonilla deal. But now he is an MLB Network analyst and just a really good guy overall. Steve Phillips is going to join us on on Garage Beers to talk about everything Guardians, as the team can lock up a bye in the first round if they just win their game tonight, which they're already off to a good start. So we'll talk a little bit about the Guardians. And then, me, Joey, Chad, we're going to let our opinions be known about the Browns. And we're going to talk about so much more. So hopefully you'll come back at 9 o'clock for Garage Beers Live. Also, get over to the OBR. Get over to the OBR.com. Make sure you are subscribed for the best written content that happens in all of Cleveland about the Cleveland Browns. The OBR.com is your home for everything Browns as we go through this season. So make sure you are tuned in and subscribed to the OBR.com, and make sure you're following the OBRs on all of the socials as well, as, again, the OBR, your home for everything Cleveland Browns. So, again, if you're just joining, this is the Doghouse. I am Michael Keefe, and I'm just waiting to see my special guest pop on. Sometimes a little timeliness gets in the way, but just waiting to see my special guest pop on in the background. In the meantime, Cleveland Browns coming off of a less than stellar outing against the New York Giants, in which they didn't look good in any way, shape, or form. We haven't gotten the best news on the injury front this week. We haven't gotten the worst news on the injury front this week, as we do know that the offensive line takes another hit in Wyatt Teller going on the IR. So it looks like we don't know what Jack Conklin looks like. Every week it feels like he practices full go and then he doesn't play. So we'll figure out about that. We'll figure out what they have to do to shuffle. We don't know Jed Wills' health, although they did make it seem like his knee was better than it looked. So hopefully Jed Wills can give it another go and show a little bit of a better effort. And so the offensive line banged up. We're still waiting on, I think, on an official word of Myles Garrett, although it didn't sound like those results came back terribly for his feet. And Myles is one of those guys that if he can go, he can go. And again, as you know, week 4 here, it may be, we got to see. There's just so much that's still to come with the Cleveland Browns. But we'll see about David Njoku if he can go. That's a big pickup for the Cleveland Browns if he can play. And week 4 against the Raiders is officially the last week we have to be without Nick Chubb. Now, I don't know if he's ready to come back in week 5, but Nick Chubb could be back after this game. So just a lot going on. And we'll get into all that, and the OBR will get you into all that with all the latest breaking news and all the coverage that you get from the guys on the OBR.com. But I see my special guest in the house now, and I am ready to bring him in. And this is a guy, if I've said it on the socials, this is a guy we've been lucky to talk to a little bit on Garage Beers. Just an overall great guy. We usually have him on to talk Buckeyes, but with his ties to both here in Ohio, the Buckeyes and the Raiders, and the fact that he still is a part of that Raiders organization, and he still goes out there and is kind of an ambassador for the team, I thought, whoa, who better to have on? Who better to have on? He is awesome to talk football with, and I'm bringing him in right now. Again, former Raider, former Buckeyes national champion. It's Jay Richardson. Jay,
what's up?
Welcome into the Doghouse, buddy.
How you doing?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I actually just touched down from Las Vegas, so just got in town here, and you're the first call I made was right to you to hop on and party with you, brother.
I know. You were on that flight going, man, all I want to do is get on there and hang out with Mike and talk some football. That's all I want to do tonight.
I was on that flight going, how the hell did, after going into Baltimore, handling our business, do we come in home for the home opener? Everybody in the house, Warren G in the house, Too Short in the house. I'm talking to Steph Curry. He's up in the luxury suites. Guy Fieri, Ohio legends there. Everybody's having a blast. We're excited to see the Raiders kick it off at home, coming off a big victory in Baltimore, and they got their absolute asses kicked by Andy Dalton. And that's just what happened.
Not in front of Too Short. Not in front of Too Short.
In front of Short Dog. Oh, hurt my heart, man. Hurt my damn heart.
Oh man!
But it was a good time. It was still a party. It was fun, but it was tough to watch. Head coach Antonio Pierce very upset on the sideline after the game. Devontae looked frustrated, and I know you'll get into it, but to the point where we even pulled Gardner Minshew and threw Aiden in there, the young boy, and got going a little bit, but it was rough. It was a rough night. It was rough to watch.
Yeah, it's funny because we're ready to do this episode to talk about Browns and Raiders, and it's happening out in Vegas. And I know there's going to be a lot of Browns fans. You'll see a bunch of orange in that stadium. But man, these two teams are off to very similar starts.
Yeah.
As far as not playing great, up and down, they're not scoring a lot of points on either way. I mean, I know you guys had a huge win against Baltimore, but the week one loss against the Chargers, and then just a drubbing to Carolina. It's really interesting. They've started very similarly.
And, with both teams, hell, with the whole NFL right now, this has been a very, very strange season. So many things are upside down. What we thought was going to be what it is ain't what it is, okay? We all thought 49ers, if nothing else, you can hang the hat on that Niners defense. Matt Stafford goes in there with a skeleton crew offensive line, no Puka, banged up wide receivers, carves them up. Listen, anybody that's played against Matt Ryan like I have, we all respect him. That dude is a beast. But they should not have done that to the 49ers, even if they didn't have Debo and Kittle and CMC. I don't care. That's still Fred Warner out there and Nick Bosa. It was embarrassing to watch that. A lot of games just, to watch Joe Burrow and their, I don't even want to call it a decline, but it's kind of a decline in Cincinnati. Something's going on. I don't know what Zach Taylor's going to do. He's going to have to get rid of the defensive coordinator, because if you score 30-plus points as an offense, you should win that football game. I don't care who you are on defense. You should win that football game. So, to your point, strange season. These two teams, the Browns and the Raiders, like similar trajectory right now. We're not really sure what's going on. Deshaun Watson has not been the same quarterback since he was getting rub downs in Houston. I don't know if we need to get him some new therapists or what. Get somebody to get my man right, because he's not the same guy. $200 million later, it's looking like one of the worst deals in NFL history. And it's tough because we all watched Joe Flacco take a similar squad and make a little noise. And to see what's going on with Deshaun, granted, he's not getting a lot of time to throw. Even when he does, though, looks indecisive, looks unsure. The ball's not spinning the same as we're used to seeing it from him. I mean, it's very, very strange. The defense, this is not the Browns defense from last year. I don't know what changed. Yeah, Mike, man, I have no answers. This is a weird year in football.
Well, we'll talk. Yeah, it is weird. It's weird all over the place, but we'll talk it all. But if you want to hear a pretty good, I won't say this represents all Browns fans.
Uh-oh.
We do have a segment of Browns fans that just will live and die with Deshaun Watson, and everything is everybody else's fault. But I think a lot of fans. Just saw a comment come through from our buddy Drew in Brick City that says, "Hey, we'll trade you Deshaun for Minshew."
You know what? We might take the trade right now. I don't even know. That might be a solid deal. Just straight up swap. See if a new environment helps Deshaun. We got therapists out there. We'll get them going. We'll have some fun with them. And then, maybe Gardner likes it out there in the cold. I don't know, because whatever's happening right now, it ain't working.
The fact that you just said we might take the deal tells you all you need to know about what we got going on here. Hey, real quick, before we dive in, Jay, what's the Hall of Fame plaque back there? What do we got going on behind?
Oh, this whole thing hanging out back here.
This. I didn't even know it was there. Oh.
I just happen to have that sitting there. I apologize. I usually have a nice clean white wall, but there we are. No, it was an honor. A week ago from Friday, I got inducted into the Dublin City Schools Hall of Fame, where I went to Dublin down here, and it was a really, really big honor for me. My whole family was there. Got to give a big old long speech. Mom cried. Brothers were there. It was really, really cool. But to be recognized as someone that has made a difference in the community as much as on someone's football field meant a whole bunch to me. So it was really a family award. My whole family won this award, and I'm very proud of it.
Well, those I know there's different schools down there, and I'm way more familiar with the.
I went to Scioto, but now there's there's also Kaufman. Now there's Jerome.
Okay,
so we got 3 Dublin schools.
So was it? Did you go to the same place as Brady Quinn?
No, we were rivals.
All right.
But they wouldn't let us play against one another in football because they didn't want the rivalry to get nasty. But we could play them in basketball. It was very strange. It was fun.
Oh, yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Right.
Take the pads off, and then let's see where this goes. That's great. All right, Jay. So listen, we've talked about it here. First of all, I love that you still maintain this connection with the Raiders, and they were first NFL team, and obviously that has just such a deep connection that a player has coming out of college, and that team that took a chance on you coming out of college. And the Raiders have been through a lot. The Raiders have been through a lot since your time there, including the move from California into Nevada into Vegas. So just talk about the new digs, talk about the Allegiant Stadium, because it looks awesome. But talk about the way the fans have kind of handled it, and the atmosphere that Browns fans and the Cleveland Browns can expect to see out in Vegas this weekend.
Oh, yeah. So first things first, man, to your point, who drafts you and how long you stay there has a huge impact on you for the rest of your life, right? So once a Raider, always a Raider is kind of the tag saying for Raiders, and they have one of the best alumni programs in the NFL, and that's not just me being a homer with the Raiders. Any guys that have played for other teams will tell you, man, the Raiders do it different. We have an awesome alumni weekend every year. They keep us connected. I do some media stuff for them too, because that's kind of my background. But to be out there in Oakland and to have that fan base and spend 4 seasons out there just having a blast. And it was rough. We had some tough times. Lane Kiffin drafted me, and we just stole Lane Kiffin's running back at Ohio State. He actually texted me about that, because that kid is an absolute beast. I'm talking about Quinshawn Judkins, but I digress. Anyways, when you get to the Las Vegas and you get to Allegiant Stadium and you see that it looks like the Death Star from Star Wars. I mean, it is a badass stadium. It is state of the art. You're talking to a guy that's played in every single NFL stadium except for the new LA Rams one, and I can say it is. I think it might be the best. Jerry World's fun to play in, but it's kind of like a nightclub that happens to have a football field in it. This is like a football paradise, man. Like, it is a party. It is a beautiful grass field out there. They take very good care of it. The fans are amazing. Because it's Vegas, you're going to get tons of fans traveling. So it's always this interesting dynamic, man. The Browns fans, Cleveland, get ready for this. Don't be shocked if you see as much orange and brown as you do silver and black. That's how it is, because it's a tourist town. So there's a lot of Browns fans that are going to be in Vegas. and there's a lot of home team fans too. But sometimes there's more there's more of the away team fans, which is always peculiar for me. But it's because, again, people set up their schedules to travel there. It's going to be intense. I think personally, just after seeing how head coach Antonio Pierce felt after that game and talking about the business decisions guys made on the field and how the front office and this coaching staff might have to make some decisions too. Guys are going to be on edge. I've been in a locker room where you're coming off an ass kicking and you get the inkling that heads are going to roll and crap runs downhill. Be prepared for a very on edge Raiders team that's like, dude, coming out there with something to prove. And still banged up though. Max Crosby's got an ankle. Christian's I got big D tackle from Miami. He's got a knee. They both played, but I talked to one of the coaches on the sideline. He's like, man, Max is like 70% out there right now. Christian's like 58%. Like, we're not where we want to be physically right now. Baltimore, they got beat up a little bit, even though they won. So the experience is second to none in Las Vegas. Allegiant Stadium is beautiful, man. They're going to love it.
So you brought up well, not really the new head coach, but really the first full year head coach, Antonio Pierce, out there. And man, he seems to fit the mentality. Obviously, it was exactly what he's doing. Played for a long time and was so good as a player, but he seems to just fit that mentality. And it feels like a team can take on his attitude.
Yes.
Can be that leader in that way. Does he kind of have to watch himself a little bit though? Because you wonder when a coach comes out and talks about guys making business decisions. I think as a coach, you always kind of have to watch what you say to the media a little bit. And I think maybe as a former player, I think he knows that obviously, but sometimes it's real easy to let those emotions rise up and get up. So you got to kind of watch that a little bit.
Interesting point you're making there. And I agree and disagree. It's not simultaneously. Now here's why. A lot of former players who become head coaches who kind of go through the, climb those rungs to get there. And depending on how fast they get there, they're not always as media trained and ready to go as some of these guys who, were kind of groomed to be a head coach, these corporate CEO type guys that we've seen get hired. But at the same time, what they do have is the respect of the guys in the building in that locker room. What they do have is an authenticity that you cannot go train for. You cannot purchase. It is either you got it or you don't. AP is a West Coast guy. He was the quarterback of that Giants defense. He took down Bill Belichick, and he's a Super Bowl winning guy. I mean, he's got all the things you would want in a leader of your football team. But I do agree with you here. It's that dog in him. It's that player in him that he wants to call guys out sometimes. Save some of that for the locker room. For even though I know that sometimes you have to put pressure on your team, you also have to tote the line as a head coach, because now you're more than just, hey, I'm coaching these fellas. You're a figurehead for the organization, and you have to portray stability. That's part of PR. That's part of leadership. And I think he's learning that in real time. He's going to keep getting better. But the important thing is I want to see how those guys respond this week. I think this game against Cleveland will tell you a lot about how those players feel about AP.
And I think it's also interesting just to that point. You think about these guys and here I am at 40 years old, and you and I aren't far off in age. And
right there with you.
And we remember watching him play. We remember Super Bowls. We remember watching this dude dominate for the Giants. There's some guys on that team that were born in 2002 and 2003, right? And their memories aren't watching this guy play football. He's their coach. And so it does kind of go back to that where there's going to be some guys that don't look at him as the star player that he was, but they look at him as the coach, and that could create some friction. It's an interesting dynamic because you just feel like when you listen to him talk, you feel like the guy's got to be ready to run through a wall for him at all times.
Well, first things first, he's even though he played for the Giants, man, you meet AP and you spend some time around him, he's a Raider. He looks like he should have been a Raider his whole life, dude.
Look at him.
The whole vibe is a Raider, right? So he has that authenticity, but he also has the cachet of, hey, I'm never going to ask my guys to do something that you can't cut on some film, go on YouTube and see me do. You get it? So like it creates an understanding. And he knows what these guys are going through. He understands that this ain't easy, but he's also came through the NFL in a much grittier era. And I don't know if you've been to an NFL practice in the last 5 years, man. It's pretty cake, man. Like I could have played 10 years in this version of the NFL. Like it is. So a lot of the veteran guys sometimes are like, oh, come on, fella. Like you can't be out here bitching about certain things. And you have no idea. Like when I got to the NFL as a rookie, we still had consecutive 2-a-day practices and full pads. I was lining up every day at practice next to Warren Sapp, Hall of Fame defensive tackle, and he took no you-know-what off of anybody, and you had to hear his mouth all day long. It was a different grooming process. I mean, you were kind of like born in the fire. And some of these guys now, it's AP's trying to hammer that into them, and he's trying to steal this football team, and that's not easy to do, especially with how things are now in football. But to your point, he's got to tote that line between gritty, I'm in this thing with you guys, but also, buttoned up kind of, I still gotta play the part, of team leader and handle the media properly and be the face of a franchise to a certain degree.
So I'm going to ask you one last question, and then we'll get into this actual matchup here. I'm not going to ask about who, but when he's out there talking about making business decisions, you as a former player, if you hear your coach say that, what's he talking about? Who's like what? Not who's making the decisions, because I don't want you calling out. You're a Raiders ambassador. I want you getting in trouble. But what's the business decision? What's he talking about?
I'm not going to get. Thank you for that. I'm not going to, because I don't want to get into who, even though there's a couple clips pretty clear. But here's what I'm going to explain to folks at home. What people mean, what coaches mean, what players mean when they say, man, guys are out there making business decisions. Very, very simple. Guys were turning down contact and collisions. This is a collision sport. It's played by men moving at high velocity towards one another. I'm just going to give you the physics of it, right? So if train X is coming at the same velocity as train Y, there's going to be a collision. Someone's going to have to not give ground. If train Y decides to get off the tracks and avoid that collision, train Y just made a business decision. So he's cutting on and this is before the film. You could see it live, right? So we're from where a lot of us alumni were watching the game. We're like right at the 50. We're watching, in the suite. We're looking down and we're all kind of pointing, going, yo, did you see number so-and-so just get out of the way? They just run a crack toss into the boundary, and we got guys like diving out of the way because they don't want to get hit. And so the ball just goes right around the corner and for a 28-yard gain. And my first thought is, oh boy, that is not going to go over well with AP. Like you don't see that too often out of a well-coached football team. And I get that guys are banged up, but if you're banged up and you can't go, then don't go. But what you don't want to do is put crap on film. And we had guys putting some bad stuff on film, and AP called it out. Like should he have called it out to the media? I don't know that he even needed to, because everyone saw it. But that is what a business decision is. It is saying, I'm not willing to sacrifice my body for the team. I'm going to preserve myself for down the road. And for some teams like the Raiders, like the Browns, there is no down the road. It's today. If you don't get it done today, you're almost, you lose 2 more games, the playoffs are probably waving you bye-bye pretty soon here.
Hey, we didn't know we were getting physics lessons with Jay Richardson.
Yeah,
Force equals mass times acceleration. I remember this.
J. Isaac Newton. Just here to help out, man.
Let's go. Sir Isaac Richardson. I love it. All right. So, listen, there's so many similarities that we can draw between these two teams. One, I think we got to start at the quarterback. The Raiders come in to the season with question marks, right? Yeah. We know Gardner Minshew, and we know that on any given week, Gardner Minshew can just go ballistic.
He can.
We saw it here in Cleveland last year when he was with the Colts.
Yeah.
And he literally put the Colts on his back in that game. He was rushing for touchdowns. He was throwing for touchdowns. He is one of those guys that he just doesn't seem to do it every week. It's kind of every once in a while he does it, and then he kind of does it. You also came in with Aiden O'Connell, who is a young dude who I think they have some level of hope for, but he's not this highly touted young prospect kind of guy. So there's a lot of questions there. Obviously, Jay, on our side, we have no idea. We've acted like, all right, this is going to be the year that our quarterback bounces back and gets into form, and we've acted like it year in and year out for the 3rd year now.
Yeah.
And outside of a couple halves of football, really, We haven't seen the bounce back. So really, I don't know if I should say this to you as a defensive lineman, but the perception is the most important player out on the field is that quarterback. And both these teams got questions.
So just to address the most important player on the field, very, very easy to do. Look at when someone's going to get franchise tagged, right? What are the highest franchise tenders? It is quarterback. What's right after that? Pass rusher. Why? The most important guy on the field is the quarterback, and the second most important guy is the guy that can affect the quarterback. So some of the parallels, Browns got a quarterback who has a lot of question marks. We're not sure which version of Deshaun Watson we're going to get. We know the version we've seen most recently, and it is not the same guy that we saw down south. And he hasn't looked comfortable in the pocket. He hasn't looked comfortable in the offense. He hasn't looked comfortable running. He hasn't looked comfortable throwing. At peak, Deshaun Watson was a guy that could get out on the perimeter, make something happen, make magic happen, launch it downfield. Hell, he looked a lot like the kid we saw last night who's a rookie for the Washington Commanders. Peak Deshaun Watson, a lot of similarities there. This version of Deshaun Watson is one big question mark. And then on the flip side, the Raiders, Gardner Minshew, he's a guy that he plays above his talent level at times. He has a gunslinger kind of cavalier attitude. He's super laissez-faire, man. He'll come in the locker room with some jorts and the hair and a ponytail and this thick mustache, and you're like, who is this dude? And then he'll go out there, and 2 weeks into the season, he's leading the league in passing for a quick second, and we're all going, wait a minute. And then it's like he'll come crashing back down to earth. It's not always because he's not as skilled from week to week. No, the skills remain the same. Gardner has issues with consistency, I believe, because I think from week to week, he's not sure what he's seeing defensively. He can do a good job when he's on time, when he knows what he's seeing, and he gets a pretty good look at the defense, man. I got to give a lot of credit to the Panthers defensive coordinator, mixing things up. And he looked a little bit confused at different times, that he didn't look comfortable, and the pocket wasn't always clean. So kudos to them. But I think who would have thought we'd be looking at Gardner versus Deshaun Watson and going, man, I wonder who's going to play better. Like, that is crazy that we're here right now. But that's why we're here. And then on the other side of the ball for both teams, they both have a premier pass rusher. And both premier pass rushers are banged up. You got Mad Max, and you got the freak of nature that is Myles Garrett, who I know Myles personally. That's my dude. His manager, Shay, and me are like this. So I've kicked it with Myles. The dude's an absolute specimen, an absolute stud. Defensive player of the, former everything, former league leader and sack. I mean, all that. Him, TJ Watt, 1A, 1B, whatever you want to call him. I personally would take Myles over TJ if I had to do a draft.
Say it louder.
Yes.
Say it louder for all my fans.
Hey, listen, all my Steelers fans, I know y'all gonna get mad about this. And TJ's dope. Don't get me wrong, and he can turn that corner with the best of them. But he's not on the field as often as you need him. And Myles is bigger, stronger. He can anchor the point of contact in the run. I watch Myles as the only guy I've seen ragdoll Trent Richardson and throw him out of his way. I've never seen anybody do that. So the kid's different. But he's banged up, got the foot, and then Max is banged up. He's got an ankle. So I don't know what's going to happen with either guy. I don't know, with travel out west, how Myles is going to feel. And we still haven't got the verdict on what's going to happen. But you got two teams that at different point last season were beating some really, really good teams and were looking good. One made the playoffs. So I think we both did. But I just don't think that either team is the same version of themselves for whatever reason. Like the same head coach, same, new quarterback for the Raiders, but like same system, everything should look a certain way. And then you're just not getting it. And I don't know, especially in Cleveland, I don't know what's changed that dramatically between the playoffs last year, not even last year, like 8 months ago, and then right now. Like, what changed that they look this, I don't want to say bad, because they have quarters where you're like, hold on, there we go, Cleveland. And then it's like, oh, what are we doing? And I can't tell you, I can't pinpoint, if it's a confidence thing, if it's injuries, if they change their scheme. It all looks the same to me. It just looks like they're not playing as a unit, and they're not playing with a whole lot of confidence in the group. And it's kind of tough to watch sometimes.
Well, I think that earlier you talked about Max Crosby coming into this game and we don't know if he's coming into this game. Last game, he was like 70%, you said.
Yeah.
That sound you heard was a little bit of fear because it's 70% Max Crosby going against what we've seen on this offensive line so far.
Yeah.
Is a scary thought. To answer the question a little bit, Jay, the offensive line's been terrible.
Yes.
And it's just been, we've got these two tackles that we thought were going to be ready to play that have not been ready to play. We finally saw Jed Wills last week for about 2.5 quarters. He got hurt again and missed the rest of the game. Jack Conklin's going full participant in practice during the week and then not playing on the weekend. So I don't know what's going on there.
I did see that. And Conklin's had a history of kind of being in and out of lineups and banged up. But
yeah.
if you're rocking and rolling 3 days in a row in practice, I don't know how you're not playing on Sunday. I don't know if that's a confidence thing or that's just how they're trying to ramp him up. But from what I saw the Cleveland's tackles, you got to get somebody out there, man, because let me tell you something. Max, premier, not even just Max, premier pass rushers somehow always get healthy when it's time to go against a bad O-line. They all of a sudden feel just good enough to get out there and kick your ass because they know if I want to get my numbers, I got to make sure when there's a fish out there or a weak link in the chain. And guys circle certain games on their season. So you'll go through your season and you're like, oh, we got San Fran. Well, they got Big Trent and, whatever. But, we got Cleveland coming up. Oh, everybody gets at least 1 or 2 sacks on them. I'm going to have to get healthy for this game because I got to make sure I hit my numbers. So I would expect, even though Max is banged up, to magically, one Toradol shot later, be feeling great when Cleveland comes into town.
Well, and we'll see. You talked about AP and the ferocity that you feel the Raiders are going to come out in this game. But you do have to also feel, as a Browns fan, there's got to be a level of that because there's still good guys out there on that. Joe Bitonio is going to be a Hall of Famer.
Yes.
Joe Bitonio is an all-time great offensive lineman, and he hasn't looked good. And you're going to be without Wyatt Teller for the next 4 weeks, and that
hurts.
Terrible.
That
but
hurts.
You got these guys that have to, there has to be that moment where they go, we're good, we're better than this. Even our depth is better than this. We got to be better, and you would expect to see that. But I think it's an element of that, Jay. Obviously, so many pressures. I want 18 pressures on Watson last week, just outrageous. Yeah. But I also think the difference between last year and this year, Jay, is that when they had a guy at quarterback that was able to play with anticipation, and throw to a spot as opposed to throw to what he sees, you saw the offense take off, because I think that's Kevin Stefanski's offense is get the ball out of your hand fast and trust that your guy's going to be there. We have not seen that at all with Deshaun Watson. What we have seen when he does get time to throw is he's throwing to guys that he sees open. And a lot of times when the ball gets there, they're not open anymore.
So the windows in the NFL open and close very, very quickly. Anticipation is going to be the reason you're going to be a great quarterback, or the reason you're going to be a guy that is up and down. And I think Deshaun Watson, God bless him, like I said, at his peak, he looked very special. Problem is, if you're not a kind of quarterback that you can put into a system and you can truly operate from the pocket with anticipation, then you're going to turn into this kind of gunslinging kind of guy who has to be able to make off-platform throws and create. Kyler Murray does this. You'll see a lot of guys just because Kyler's tiny, he can't really sit in the pocket and just operate like Flacco. He can't see. He's like a midget with the oversized helmet. It looks ridiculous out there. So he's got to scoot his little ass around and find some new windows to toss through. So Deshaun, even though he's taller, he has that element where for some reason sitting in the pocket, he gets antsy. He doesn't see it right away. So he feels like if I can't see it, I'm going to create it. And you can do that to a point, but you can't hang your hat on that for a full season. And that's just not sustainable. And you're starting to see his career flounder because, man, that's not sustainable. Now, if he was with Cliff Kingsbury, or if he was one of these coordinators that's used to that kind of thing and they can draw some stuff up for him, even Sean Payton, who, yes, I played with Drew Brees and I had Sean, and he's a machine, but also he knew how to move the pocket to create windows for Drew, and they had a rapport. I just don't think Stefanski and Watson are on the same page. I don't think they're comfortable. However, I will say this, Raiders are banged up in the secondary. I think they lost a safety, lost a corner. AP's mad at one of the corners. That's a different story I won't get into. So the blueprint with Deshaun is blitz, blitz, blitz. Don't even give him time to create. Just get on him, make him have to make a quick anticipated throw. 80% of the time, it's probably not going to go well. If I'm the Raiders, I'm probably doing that. But because I know my coverage in the back end is questionable, I want to make him just get rid of the ball right away. If I'm Deshaun, I'm getting with Jerry Jeudy, who has looked good at times, and I'm saying, my man, get ready to go. I'm looking for you. Like, this is going to be your game, because he's going to have mismatches everywhere he goes, I think. And that kid is talented. So I think they have to get a rapport quickly first quarter, get some timing throws with him. Just get the ball right out to him in space, get him going, get Deshaun comfortable, letting the ball go right away. Lean on the run game. The Raiders struggled in the run. I mean, gave up, well over 175 yards of rushing against the freaking Panthers.
Right.
If I'm Cleveland, strap up your chin straps, dig deep, get low, fire off on the Raiders. They will. I don't want to say this about I love you guys, but they will cave on you a little bit there, because we're banged up in the middle. If I'm Stefanski, that's where I'm attacking to start the game. A couple quick passes, get these guys tired. All of a sudden, switch right into your big formation, go right at them, see what they're trying to do, and then get Deshaun Watson on a play action bootleg. Get him moving on the perimeter, get him away from the trenches and out in some space where he has a run pass option and feels good. Then he'll start to feel like himself again. You could look up in the second quarter, it could be 14-3, Cleveland, and he's starting to feel like himself. And now the narrative is going to change. But if you don't get on him early, you give Mad Max a chance to wreck this whole afternoon, man. I'm telling you, don't do it. Run the football.
No, and it's the second week in a row, Jay. We go up against the Giants last week. Going into last week's game, we're the worst team in football against the run.
How do you let Daniel Jones be great?
Well, we're going to talk about the Raiders offense versus the Browns defense. But while we're still on Browns offense versus Raiders defense, the Browns got bottled up in the run game against a Giants team that the week before gave up 200 plus yards to the Washington Commanders on the ground. And so it's interesting to see how the dynamic's going to change with the play calling, because obviously without Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford's still a pretty good back, but he's not your typical between the tackles banger of a running back.
Yeah.
Deontay Foreman has been okay, but he's kind of like our new version of Kareem Hunt. If you need 2 or 3 yards, he can get you 2 or 3 yards. If you need 8 yards, he can get you 2 or 3 yards.
He's not a spring chicken either.
No, and that's okay. But here comes this Raiders defense, 32nd in the league as far as, I think they're 5.5. I think we got a graphic here. I'll see if Ian will throw it up. 5.5 yards per rush opponents have got against them. But on the passing side of things, they're also near the bottom of the league. 27 points per game allowed. And again, they did go against Baltimore, and they did have that. I mean, J.K. Dobbins, part of you had to hate it as a Raiders guy, but part of you had to as a Buckeye. Love seeing J.K. Dobbins look the way he looked week one.
J.K.'s my boy. I covered him in school. I predicted where he'd go in the draft. I called a buddy of mine from Baltimore, like 2 months for the draft, and I was like, dude, I don't know how much my word means or whatever in your meetings, but he's wired to be one of you guys. Like, he has a Ravens kind of mentality. He is a hard hat, go out there and grind it out. Plus, he has this amazing jump cut ability, and I just think he's special. You guys should get him. And he was like, thanks, Jay. Whatever. But sure enough, they go grab him, and I was like, they listened. So it hurt me when he got hurt. You know how I feel about Harbaugh and but I do respect Harbaugh, because Harbaugh always puts together solid rushing attacks. He understands the mentality you have to play football with, and he instills it in every team he's ever coached. So I knew they were going to be physical. I knew LA was gonna run the ball, and then to see after week 2 at least J.K. Dobbins leading the league in rushing, I was like, oh boy! And to see his resurgence felt really, really good. So the Raiders have not had an easy start to this season, man. This has been, they started off like two grinded out, like bone crusher kind of games, for physical games. And then while you're banged up, the Panthers kick you while you're down with Andy Dalton, who, by the way, is a playoff quarterback. When in his prime, he is no scrub. We were in the suite talking about it. A lot of the past guys. I was with Michael Crabtree, and he was like, "Man, Andy Dalton's fucking good." I don't know if everybody knows this, but like Andy, when he was slinging it, he can sling it. Like he's a guy that can throw with anticipation, system guy. So I look at the Raiders defense and I go, yeah, they're at the bottom of everything. They got to get better. They got to get healthier. But they've also been tested a little bit more than some other squads to start the season off.
Man, Michael Crabtree. I was a grad student at Texas A&M, and I still have nightmares about. I think he scored like 100 touchdowns in a game at Kyle Field.
Dude, Crab was a dog, man.
Nightmares about Michael Crabtree.
Absolutely.
All right. So on the other side, and again, I'm with you, man. I think the recipe for the Raiders, you just do exactly what the Giants did. Make Deshaun Watson look so uncomfortable, because this is the difference. And this is kind of what we expected. What we were hoping for here in Cleveland is Deshaun Watson to be a quarterback that when the other team makes him uncomfortable, he's supposed to be a nightmare for a guy like you, Jay. He's a nightmare when you beat your offensive lineman that you're lined up against and you think, oh, I got him. He's supposed to be out of there.
He's supposed to have the sweet feet.
Right.
Because he had the sweet feet in Houston, but the feet, I haven't seen the feet.
He's feetless. There are no feet. So here's hoping for Deshaun's sake, if the Raiders get after him, he's got to be able to make some guys miss, get out on the move. And hopefully the play calling for the Browns allows him to get out and become a little bit more comfortable as well, and stop keeping the ball in his hands as long as it's been in his hands.
Yes.
On the other side of things, the Raiders and the run game don't match up right now. And through 3 weeks, again, you've gone against some really good running attacks.
Yeah.
But you also haven't run the ball at all. 32nd in the league at 2.8 yards per attempt.
Yeah.
It's been a tough go running the ball,
Dude, and it doesn't make sense because we have a big, strong O-line. That was kind of our hallmark last season. We know we got this massive O-line. We're going to at least be able to grind the run game out. And we did last year. And all of a sudden this year, it's just not there. And I get it, and I'm not putting this on him, but like you get the barking and the chirps from Devontae. Man, he wasn't happy. So it's like it seems like at different times Garner is like so locked in on Devontae. Like I got to make sure I get Tay going. I want him happy. I got to keep feeding him. And it's like, okay, but let's still run this football. Let's also, by the way, if I'm the Raiders, there's this kid that we drafted from Georgia. Man, he looked special in the first 2 weeks. Brock Bowers down the seam was there all afternoon. Like we were calling out, like, yo, throw the ball to Brock. Like he's right there. And he's gritty. He can run, but he also watched him run through some contact against Baltimore. He had a great day against Baltimore. And then it's like we forgot he was on the team. So is that scheme? I don't know, but man, I'm trying to figure out how to get this rookie the football. I'm trying to get back to running the ball and let Gardner operate out of play action, but you can't have play action if you can't run the football. So this whole idea that we're going to just have Gardner Minshew spread teams out and carve them up, I don't know that that's who he is as a quarterback. I think he needs a great run game. I think he needs some play action. I think he needs a tight end relief valve, and I think he needs a great number one, which we do have in Devontae, but it's and Jacoby Myers can really come on too. But we're not looking like a balanced unit, and I don't like how we're calling plays either. Like I don't want to get but I don't like what I'm seeing. Put it that way.
Well, when you look at the matchup, we pride ourselves on this defense here in Cleveland, and
yes,
we've talked a lot about Myles Garrett, but we don't just pride ourselves on Myles Garrett. It's Myles Garrett and Dalvin Tomlinson and Zadarius Smith and Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and Jordan Hicks has looked phenomenal in a little bit here in Cleveland, and those defensive backs, we pride ourselves on a lot of that. But I'm really interested in your take as a guy that played defense at the highest level. The debate that's been going on here is, especially in the first half, they really locked it down against Daniel Jones in the second half of that game.
Mm-hmm.
First half, when the offense was doing absolutely nothing, it felt like they were getting carved up. But when you watch the game, Jay, it felt like the game plan for the Giants was just simplify everything. Get the ball out of Daniel Jones's hands And it felt like the Browns were giving them enough cushion on the outside and especially kind of over the middle that Daniel didn't have to do anything special. Now, obviously, Malik Neighbors looks like a great up-and-coming wide receiver.
Yeah, very talented.
He didn't really have to do anything special. They almost used the Browns' aggressiveness against them. They were in a lot of screen plays. They were in a lot of misdirection, kind of end-around plays, and the Browns haven't defended an end-around successfully since 1987, I don't think. But as a defender, when you are out on the field and you're on this team that's overly aggressive and you're getting after that quarterback and that's your calling card and you're physical on the outside and you're watching this team kind of beat you at your own game as far as like they're just taking what you give them.
Yeah.
Working. How do you overcome that? And what do you look for out of the coaching staff to kind of overcome that?
So it's frustrating, one, to answer the first one. And what people got to realize is when you've got when you're about to play a quarterback that has been struggling, like Daniel Jones was, as a coordinator defensively, the first thing we're going to say in that line, in that team meeting room or whatever, in that defensive meeting room, I should say, once you break off into offensive defense, okay, we got Daniel Jones this week. The kid's struggling. He's not really seeing the field all that good either. We don't have to do anything crazy, but let's continue to give him multiple looks. Make sure you're great in your disguises. We don't actually have to blitz him. Stay into your coverage. Maybe come up, play a little cover 5. Let's see what he can do, but make him throw in the tight windows with anticipation. I don't think he can do it. Sometimes with these guys who are struggling, when you do blitz them, you almost make their reads easier because they're like, well, there's my hot read, blitz coming. I'm just going to let it go. And then, boom, it happens for them. And they're like, oh, and then they start getting confidence. And before you know it, now they're wanting to spread you out and try some different things. But the key to not letting him get confidence is forcing him to read the defense, forcing him to process. The knock on Daniel Jones is he struggles reading defenses. He's not really processing things like he should. And he doesn't always throw the best ball. He has talent, but it ain't consistent. And up here, the connection between brain and arm ain't always there. And at some point, all you're going to do is chuck it up to Malik because he's the athlete out there and he's your number one pick. If I'm the Browns, man, I'm playing 4-down linemen. You got Z and you got the freaking nature on the other side. By the way, Za'Darius is no scrub, dude. I love that dude. I loved him in Green Bay. I think he just plays the game the right way, run, pass, and he's always finding ways to beat the guy in front of him. So you're solid there, and you got solid coverage most of the time in Cleveland. I mean, this is a good defense. This defense has not fallen off a cliff like the offense had. This is a good defense. You don't have to. It's like something Ohio State does sometimes. Where I'm like, you don't have to blitz when you got great players. Let your 4 horses up there roll, play fantastic coverage, and force the quarterback to make tough throws. Force the quarterback to really pick you apart. Because I don't think Daniel Jones can do that. Now, there are certain quarterbacks, I wouldn't do that too much with Aaron Rodgers. I'd give him a different look every quarter. Yeah. Like one quarter, I'd be in coverage, 4-man down. The next quarter, I'd be damn near everyone walked up on the line, double A gap blitzing, and then kind of feigning and doing a lot of stemming. You have to for those guys. But for Daniel Jones, dude, just line up, cover. I hate seeing the Cleveland corners, by the way, when it's 3rd and let's say 7, why are you guys 9 yards deep?
Yeah.
Like that is a no-brainer kind of throw. And even if you do come up, make the tackle, and now it's 4th and 1, you can fall forward for a yard and now the chains are moving. So you want to see, I like aggression, but know when you need to be aggressive and when you can just kind of play great coverage, let your 4 guys up front go to work and force that quarterback to actually play quarterback because you make the reads very easy when you have these not well-disguised blitzes, I'll say.
Well, and I think this week is fairly similar in that you've got Gardner Minshew. And I think an area where Daniel Jones is pretty good is that he's a little bit of an agent of chaos back there. I said it before last week's game. If you let this guy get out and run, Daniel Jones can run.
Yeah.
If you're not sound and you're getting so far upfield on your pass rush, he's just going to walk right past you and he's going to take off. And
he's a little bit faster than you think now.
Yeah.
Like he's an athlete. He's actually more of a dual threat guy than he is a pocket guy. I don't think people realize that.
And I think
why? they see a white guy and they're like, he's a pocket guy. You're like, no, this dude's an athlete, man.
Yeah, not every white guy's slow and big like me. All right, it's not all like me.
Look at Josh Allen.
That's right. Gardner Minshew, I think, is a chaos agent a little bit as well. It's what we saw against him. It's what makes us, I think, all a little bit nervous going into this game.
He's because you don't know which Gardner you're going to get, and you don't know if he's going to come out with that swagger and moxie and just kind of like, oh shit, Gardner Minshew decided to have a day, because he will. I think a lot of that is going to be dependent on what kind of coverages Cleveland wants to play. If their whole thing is we're going to line up and be super aggressive on Garner, I think he will have a chance to make a couple plays here and there, because he can sit in the pocket and kind of rip it to the right guy. Not a huge arm, right? Like, he's not Anthony Richardson. You're not worried about him cracking you for the deep overs or down the seams for 45 yards.
He got us with one of those in the game last year. He got us to Michael Pittman, wide open, deep down the field.
He's wide open. Well, hell,
he got us.
It's possible, but if you cut on a lot of Gardner Minshew film, he's not out there just like shoot. No. But he can operate between the hashes. He can make all the throws. It's just for him, he needs to be comfortable. He needs to be able to kind of operate a little bit and see it. And I think if they struggle with it, but if I'm the Raiders, I'm running the football, trying to get that going. That's going to be hard because I think the Browns pretty good. I think they're pretty damn good in that area. But you have to at least threaten them early with it to be able to open some things up for Bowers and to get the ball to Devontae a lot, which we always try to do, and keep him happy. He's, he could be mercurial. Mercurial. That's a college word I learned.
You nailed it. You nailed that. They probably use it. You're a massive comic book guy, as we can see off to your left.
Over there. Yeah, man.
I'm gonna guess mercurial's used a lot in comic books as well. Another thing that I think is going to be really interesting is how the Browns decide to line up against Davante Adams, because Davante Adams is a premier wide receiver in the league, and there were some questions last week on how the Browns handled Malik Neighbors. Now, Neighbors, a kid, right? He's in his third game. I don't know if they showed him the respect that maybe should have been showed to the guy that tore them up. And not to say anything about MJ Emerson, who's had a pretty darn good start to his career as a third-round pick. But you've got Denzel Ward on this team. And Denzel Ward is unbelievable, and it showed. So basically what happened, Jay, I don't know if you saw it, but first half of that game, MJ Emerson was on Malik Neighbors the whole time.
Yeah.
MJ is good against kind of big physical receivers because he's a big physical corner, and he doesn't really let them get away with the stuff they get away with against other smaller corners.
Yes.
Malik Neighbors isn't that guy, though. Malik Neighbors was just burning MJ Emerson and getting him in coverage. It'll be interesting to see how the Browns approach Davante Adams, who is a big physical wide receiver. But man, you got to feel like you want Denzel Ward on your number one guy.
To your point, I was surprised. I would have had Ward on just me on Neighbors because I want best on best, and I don't even want to chance it. And I think you used the right word. A little bit of a lack of respect. Hey, rookie, you got to go prove it. All right, well, he proved it. Yeah. And I think they're going to respect Davante Adams. Plus, they understand that if you can get a big personality number one receiver like Davante frustrated early in the game, it could start to create something on the sidelines. It could all of a sudden you'll see a guy slamming his helmet down. So if I'm the Browns, I'm like, hey, our number one priority, make anybody other than Davante Adams beat us, especially on third down. Make anybody. If it's Jacoby Myers, you know what? We'll live with it. If it's Brock Bowers, hey, man, good job. But I don't want Tay to have more than one catch going into halftime frustrated and pissed off if I'm the Cleveland Browns defense. And I think that'll create more issues than people realize, because that is a real thing.
All right, Jay, we're going to get wrapped up here. I'm going to ask you, we've kind of talked about a lot of the keys to the game, and your explanations were so good as far as Raiders offense versus Browns defense, Browns offense versus Raiders defense. Again, a lot of similarities. We're going to see about health on both of these sides.
Yeah.
Health of Amari Cooper, that's going to play in big time because, man, did that guy break out last week. But
yeah,
Browns and Raiders, 4:25 Eastern in Vegas. How you feeling about this game? Give me your prediction on how this.
This is a weird game because it could be a get back on track game for either team in a sense, right? Like for the Raiders, even though the Browns do stand on their defense, and I stand on the Browns defense, you can get back on track against this team if you can get Deshaun on the ground a whole lot, get them frustrated, cause some turnovers before you know it. Puts in a couple good positions and things are rolling. On the flip side, I know it doesn't seem likely, but there's still a chance that you could see a Deshaun Watson resurgence, especially against a porous Raiders defense. If there was ever a time for Deshaun Watson to have a bounce back game, it would be against a Raiders defense who bottom last five teams in the run, bottom half in the pass. Oh man, I'm gonna say. And I think it's the environment too. Sometimes it feels like a home game for the away team because of the touristy city. I hate to make this prediction. I'm sorry, fellas. I think the Cleveland Browns are going to go out to Vegas and they're going to win by 2 scores. Mm-hmm. I think Deshaun, for whatever crazy reason, gets rocking and rolling. I just think Christian Wilkins is still banged up. I know that for a fact. I know Max. He didn't start really feeling good till the second half. He had to get that ankle warmed up. I think you run the ball right at Max, force him to play the run and slow his feet down a little bit. Our linebackers are kind of the weak point of our defense in a sense that they're not great with run pass. They're late with their reads, which leads to play action issues. You can play action us. I'll be honest. I hate to say it, but you can. If Cleveland can establish a run game in that first half and get rolling, I think Deshaun could play action the hell out of us and get on the perimeter on those bootlegs and make some things happen. And before you know it, we're going to be in trouble because I don't see Gardner Minshew carving up Cleveland's defense. I just don't see it. He could like again, but coming off of a game where he got benched, I know he'll have a lot to prove, but he'll also have his confidence a little shaken. So give me Cleveland. Give me Cleveland.
No, it's really interesting. I got one last question just from a player's perspective because this is going to play such a part in this. I think what has to happen from Kevin Stefanski and Ken Dorsey and Deshaun Watson and Jerome Ford and the Browns offense, they've got to stay on the field for a minute.
Yeah.
That was such a big part. If you want to know why Daniel Jones looked the way he did in the first half of last week's game, it's because they had the ball for like 20 plus minutes in the first half. Like the Browns would just go out there and give the ball right back to the Giants.
Yes.
So would go out. These guys, these big boys, and you remember what it was like at playing weight, man. It's a lot carrying all that weight and that pads and all that around. When you get to the sideline, and then you got to turn around and go back out, and you don't get a minute.
Turnovers kill you.
Talk to us about that as a defensive player, and even if you're on the best defense, if your offense is not on the field, how much that impacts the game.
Well, Mike, you're talking to a guy that played with Jamarcus Russell, who was drafted with him. So I am not. I'm used to poor quarterback play from a good defense. And by the way, our defense was good back in 07, 08, 09. We had Nnamdi Asomugha, we had Warren Sapp, we had Derek Burgess. Tommy Kelly. We had some, and we were on the field for sometimes 76 snaps in a game, when our offense might have played 25 snaps.
Yeah.
You're going to get your ass kicked. But more than anything, it gets in your head a little bit, right? Like for the player to go out and get a 3 and out or even a 5 or 6 and out. Like a 6 and out. Like go out there and maybe they get 1 first down and then have to punt or get a 3 and out and you're feeling good. When your offense turns the ball over or there's a special teams mishap or whatever, the first time you're like, hey, sudden change, let's go, boys. This is why we get paid the big bucks. Let's go to work. That's cool. First time.
Yeah.
And then the second or third time, it's like, dude, what are we doing? By the way, there's nothing worse than a team going on like a 8, 9, 10 play drive. You hold them to a field goal. You're like exhausted. The commercial break is over. TV timeout's over. You get in the water bottle score. Your offense goes out there. And on the opening 2 or 3 plays, turn the ball over. It's like, dude, give us a chance here. And you start to lose faith in your quarterback, and you start to lose faith in your offense or your coordinator. And that's where bad ball starts to get played. That's where guys start to get lazy in their stances. And before you know it, technique looks bad and things get ugly. And they're a good defense, but anybody can be stressed. So, yeah, man, if I'm Deshaun, put it this way. If the Cleveland Browns offense does not turn the ball over one time, they're going to win this game.
Man, I hope you're right. I've said
if they play straight up and don't make that mistake, they win the game.
I've said a lot of times now that I'm not picking Deshaun until he shows me he can do something a couple weeks in a row. He hadn't done that yet. I feel like this is that deep. I feel like the defense is embarrassed after last week.
Yeah.
About the Raiders coming out and getting themselves aggressive and getting right and getting called out by the coach and all that. And obviously we don't have that kind of coach here. He doesn't say that kind of stuff in the media, but I think they're talking about it in that locker room. And I think is a little upset.
They're talking about it in the locker room, and between me and you, guys in the league, like they text one another and everything. And so dudes are texting guys on that Cleveland defense like, yo, y'all let Daniel Jones look like not a piece of crap. And you let him get a win, you should be ashamed of yourself. So they're going to have a chip on their shoulder coming into Vegas. And Vegas guys are going to be in survival mode because you've got a head coach telling you changes are going to be coming and we're going to make decisions. And that can go one of two ways. That can either get guys inspired or that can have guys start to play selfish football because it's like, hey, I'm not going to be the one that, that's on the chopping block. I'm going to go make a play that I don't need to try to make. And I'm starting to think that could happen. So, again, give me Cleveland.
I'm feeling Cleveland, too. I'm feeling that defense. Cleveland. I'm not saying anything about Deshaun Watson until he does it, but I'm feeling Cleveland. I'm feeling that defense, and I'm feeling Kevin Stefanski never loses 2 games in a row. It's his calling card. He loses 2 games in a row, so I'm calling that too. Jay, man, last question. You're out of here.
Yeah.
Buckeyes winning the title this year?
Oh, come on. What kind of a question is that? Ohio State is as talented of a football team as I've seen. This is as talented of a team as we've had since 2014. I was around that 2014 team a lot, and there were some dogs on that team, bro. That team went in New Orleans in that Sugar Bowl and beat up Alabama.
Yeah.
Beat like physically.
Yes.
Were just the better athletes, the bigger, stronger guys. They would have won in an organized ring or they would have won in a bar fight. They were just better. This team is not that 2014 team where I think, they're going to go. They're not that. However, in the skill positions, we've got sickening talent, right? It's crazy. Quinshon Judkins is – me and Maurice Claret are at practice 2 weeks ago, and he pulls me aside and he goes, yo, Q, he was like, I love Travion, and I know he'll do great. He was like, Q's going to be the guy that will end up being our offense's personality. And I was like, oh, yeah. He goes, now I'm watching. I had seen some of them in spring ball, but I hadn't really spent some time. Man, that kid is a freak of nature. I mean, the way he's built, the way he runs. I'm glad he finally broke a couple big ones last week, even though it's against Marshall. Still, it was good to see him put that on film because that, coordinator's going to watch that and be like, oh, shit. And then Jeremiah Smith James Laurinaitis pulled me aside right before the spring game. And he goes, Jay, I know you've seen 4, right? And I was like, yeah, I've read the clippings. I've been to spring ball. I've seen it. He goes, Jay, he is Marvin Harrison right now as a true freshman. And I was like, James does not talk like this. He is the most reserved. I'm not getting too high or low on any guy. He's Marvin now. I don't know what he'll be 2 years from now. He's a freak. And I was like, yeah, I know. We'll see. Man, I got up close with him, talked to him a little bit, grabbed him, and I was like, Jesus, man, what are you made out of? He's made out of vibranium. I mean, this kid is he's one of the few players I'll say that he could go to an NFL training camp right now, fit right in, probably earn a starting job with about 30% of the NFL teams as an 18-year-old. He's special. He will be the next one. He will be the first overall pick in the draft in 2 years.
Imagine that dude was playing high school football at this time last year.
Yeah, absolute monster. I trained the combine or I trained for the combine in Florida with Calvin Johnson, so I know what a number 1 overall pick wide receiver looks like. Yes,
that's
Jeremiah Smith. He's that guy. Jeremiah Smith will go 1 or 2, maybe 3 of the top 2 teams picking. Just need a quarterback, which they always do. But he will be a top 2. He's going to be that. He'll be that impactful. He can take a 5-yard slant, 65 yards, and not even really hit his 4th gear yet. He's just kind of and he runs through contact and he blocks. Our defense is what concerns me, and not because we don't have great coverage, not because Denzel Burke, Lathan Ransom, Caleb Downs, who was like the quarterback of our defense. This kid's dad was a pro, his uncle was a pro. This kid moves like a pro, thinks like a pro. He's special. I am waiting to get the production out of our front four consistently, right? Yeah. So, and we didn't have Tyleik Williams last week. Tyleik is an absolute first-round pick dog. You saw it in the first 2 weeks. He does what he wants to do out there. Like it's child's play for him. He's already got, I think, 2 sacks through 2 weeks. He didn't play last week. I don't want to put too much pressure on this kid, but to see Jalen Tuimoloau, what he did against Penn State a couple years ago, it almost was like a bad thing for him because like we're all like, dude, you can't put that on film and then not show us
that's you
at least something close to that for a couple full seasons. So like he's the one I'm kind of like, come on 4-4, what we doing? Like when I go to practice, I grab him, pull him aside. Hey, come on, 4-4, let's go. What we doing? Like, come on. I know it's in you. Jack Sawyer is what he is. I like what Jack is. I think Jack's tough as nails. I think he holds the edge great, and he has a little bit of rush to him too. He's not. What's going on, little man?
Sorry, say hi to Jay.
Oh, you're fine. What's up, buddy?
I'll be right. Okay, all right, go. Close the door.
But,
my goodness.
Oh no, I love it. But
there's sirens going off somewhere. I don't know what's going on, but I guess we're going to check on that.
I mean, until you smell smoke, we should be solid for a second. But, Jack is going to get it going. We saw it in the bowl game last year. He'll get it going. But I do want to see more out of 4-4, and I do want to see better edge pressure from our rushers. Once I see that, then I'll tell you this is the kind of team that can win a national championship, because we've never won a national championship and not had one premier pass rusher. You can look at the Bosas, you can look at Chase Young, you can look at Will Smith in 2002 when the team I wanted. He was a 17th pick in the draft for a reason. We had at least one dude that you just knew on third down he can go get a sack.
Yes.
I'm still waiting for that.
Man.
So I'll say that's the one. When that domino falls, whenever that switch flips this season, then I'll tell you, hey man, I think it could be something special. But right now, we're going to the playoffs. We're going to be Big Ten champs. I thought it would come down to maybe us and USC and and then USC kind of looked like they can't. A one-dimensional Michigan still kicked their ass when they needed to, and so I lost faith in them. But I still think that this team, it'll be us and it'll be Georgia, it'll be Bama. I'll learn a lot from the Oregon game in a couple weeks here. Yep. I'll learn a whole lot because Dylan Gabriel is the real deal. Sure but is. Oregon's defense, I don't think is all that I wasn't impressed with, and I know how our offense can look when we get that thing cranked up. So I think we'll be fine there. I need a pass rushing monster to emerge in the next 3 weeks. I need to see it. That's all I need.
Man, Jay Richardson, legendary Buckeye, national champion, former Raider, once a Raider, always a Raider.
Yes, sir.
And Hall of Famer. And a Hall of Famer.
Oh,
just back there. Just
things happen, just happy that someone remembers that I did a couple things. So man, that's cool.
Just an awesome dude. Cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. Browns and Raiders coming up in Vegas. And we really appreciate you helping us break this game down and get ready for both teams to hopefully have a little bit of a palate cleanser after a couple of rough games. We'll see who's able. Who's
going to get right on Sunday.
That's right. Jay, appreciate you, man. Have a good one.
You too. Good night.
Man, how great is Jay Richardson? Big time. Again, we've had him on talking about the Buckeyes, and that man loves the Buckeyes. He's a legendary Buckeye. And good stuff there at the end about Ohio State, but great stuff about the Raiders, great stuff about the Browns, and we'll see what comes to fruition in Vegas, 4:25 Eastern on Sunday. That's going to do it for us here on the Doghouse. I'm going to go take a break and figure out what the heck's going on in my house. But 50 minutes from now, 5:00, it's Garage Beers time. We got Steve Phillips coming up, the former GM of the Mets. We're going to talk about the Guardians. We're going to talk about the Browns again. We're going to talk about college football. We'll talk about all of it. So go get a rest, grab something to drink, and get back here for Garage Beers at 9 o'clock. Until then, make sure you're following everything OBR, theobr.com, the socials, everything for your best home for Cleveland Browns coverage in all of Cleveland. It's right here on the OBR. That's been episode 4 of the Doghouse. Shout out again to Jay Richardson for being my guest. Shout out to you guys for being such a big part of the show. The chat was crazy. Appreciate it. Appreciate the support. And I look forward to seeing you next week for episode 5. Until then, cheers and go Browns.